Do 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 do. How are you doing there? Hi. Let's discuss something very simple. I love metaphysics. I've been translating ancient Pali now. That's Pali for over 20 years. It's the ancient texts of pre-sectarian Buddhism. All those yellow-robed guys running around Southeast Asia, Laos, Burma, Thailand, Ceylon, yeah, those are Theravadins. They used to be called Sarvastivadins. Not interested in Tibetan Buddhism, which is actually a mix of several different things, polytheistic Bon, and Latter-day Mahayanism. Not interested in any of that stuff. Anyway, there's a pre-sectarian corpus, kind of like, analogously how the Bible would predate Catholicism and Presbyterians and all that latter-day nonsense, right? And I, myself, am in no way, shape, or form interested in people's belief systems, and I don't care one single iota about religion. Religion is secularized metaphysics, but getting to the metaphysics of the texts, yeah? The oldest surviving sect are those yellow-robed guys running around Southeast Asia, and they are, by definition, soul-denying nihilists. They actually believe in a much latter-day creation of their own called Abhidhamma, which is commentaries. Like, what do the original texts mean? And of course, the only refuge in ancient Pali is the soul. Atanam saranam gatika, or Ata Dipa Viharati, dwell with the soul is your light. And it's not referring to the reflexive self. Now, the reflexive self, undeniably so, and this is true in all translations of the Pali texts, of which I'm an expert thereof, speak of the psychophysical self, i.e. the thing you see in the mirror, Bob, Sue, Larry, composed of Rupa, Vedana, Sana, Sankara, Vijnana. Let me translate that for you. Forms, feelings, perception. In other words, the flesh and blood, the mental machinations. None of that stuff is the soul or the self. Now, these, the most repeated passage in ancient Pali is Islakaya Namiswata, which means, in translation, the body is not the soul. You can't say my soul, because my implies possession, like this is one thing and it possesses something else. And that, of course, is metaphysically absurd and illogical. But people say my soul for sake of parlance. Now, it is the case, and I'm not attacking these people, I'm simply stating that everything they believe in is a total lie because it is not part of doctrine itself. The Nikaya, and the Nikayas are written in Brahmi Prakrit, and the oldest language in India is not Sanskrit, by the way, it's a Prakrit, which Pali is a type of Prakrit. They're on the Pillar Edicts of King Ashok, and the 13th Pillar Edict of King Ashok mentions Panch Nikaya, which refers to the 5 Nikayas, Digha Nikaya, Majjhima, Samyutta, and Gotaraku Daku Nikaya. Yeah, so those are pre-sectarian. In other words, all along, way before all that stuff, and that Pillar Edict was created in the middle of the 2nd century BCE, yeah, way before the sectarian. So, if you actually type in Anatta and Anatman, and I'm the world's foremost, not my opinion, it's not an egotistical statement, there's nobody on this earth that knows more about this term than I do. I know every occurrence, all 528 occurrences, I know its contextual usage, on and on and on, is only used in a pejorative fashion regarding phenomena. This is not the soul, that's not the soul, so on and so forth. So, you would not make a fallacy of composition saying, well, Buddhism teaches that there is no soul. By the way, there's no such term as Buddhism. That came way, 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 way later. Actually, the only time Gautama referred to his teachings is Samyutta Nikaya 5.5, or 5.4, excuse me. And there's thousands and thousands of passages. I can't believe I remember all these passages. And he said, what should your teachings be called? And he said, Brahmayana, path to the absolute, or path to Brahman. Which, of course, original Buddhism is nothing other than a reestablishment of Upanishadic Advaita Vedanta. It's via negativa methodology of retroductive subjective synthesis or theurgy, and the ancient Pali term for theurgy is one of several. You could say sati, which is anamnesis, or smriti, i.e. recollection, which is not recollection of something you know objectively, but recollection towards pure subjectivity. It's also called Janma or Jayati, which means to burn away. You're burning away objectivity, revealing the true subject. It means, to burn. Janma, i.e. Samadhi. Term meditation, of course, is a complete misnomer because it doesn't refer to anything specifically. It's all about objective negation leading to subjective synthesis. Anyway, getting back to the point. All those yellow-robed guys running around Southeast Asia, and I don't care what they believe in, and I'm not interested in going. But let's actually talk about original doctrine here. This is a formal debate about what did, before all these latter-day sectarian, hooies, came along, what did it actually teach in the pre-sectarian corpus? And there's a unique word, pre-sectarian. In other words, before all that stuff came later, Catholicism, Baptists, all that stuff has nothing to do with original Christianity. Like anybody with a half a brain that knows that much. And the same is true of Buddhism, quote unquote. And by the way, I'll quote Dr. Anandakichis Kumaraswamy, who famously and accurately said, everything in Buddhism is famous for today, it originally never taught. Original Buddhism was a liberation ontology based in dissubjectification, i.e. jhana, sati, smriti, samadhi, burning away objectivity. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. And Suvimutta Chittasa Nibbānam, which translates as Nirvana, means the thoroughly liberated chitta, or the nous, or spiritus sanctum, all different words which refer to one and the same thing, i.e. the soul. But these yellow-robe guys, they teach, well, Buddhism teaches there is no soul, where there's an Atman, and Atman means no soul. You'll read this everywhere. If you type in Anatta or an Atman, and they're both the same term, one is Pali, the other one is Sanskrit. That is not a teaching. There's the word never, by the way, the term for no soul in Pali is natata, which literally means there is no soul. And natata is a heretical position. Now, they will actually have dreamt up over the past 2,000 years this idea that, well, the opposite of that is believe in eternalism. And eternalism is Sasadavada, and that's a heresy too. Actually, Sasadavada is not eternalism or has no connection to the soul, but they actually co-opted that to defend themselves. Sasadavada means that you are an agent in and of samsara, and the only thing you could do is cycle in and out of life over and over and over again. That's the belief of karmayana, which means the ultimate is to make good karma. And most Indians today believe in that also. And back then the term was called Sasadavada. But anyway, they teach that this term Anatta or Anatman, both are the same term. It means there is no soul. Buddhism teaches no soul. That's why Buddhism, this is their words. Every one of them says the same thing on a variant. That's why Buddhism is completely different than Hinduism. Hinduism, by the way, doesn't refer to a religion, it refers to a people. It's completely different than Upanishads, all that other Atman-based stuff. It's like, well, that's not the case at all. Doctrine not only does not support that, it says completely the opposite. The Atman is the only term that is called eternal, Nityam, it's called the light, Dipa, it's called Sarnam, the refuge. It is the summum bonum, the absolute of attainment in pre-sectarian, i.e. original Buddhism. So regarding this term Anatta and Atman, they have told the entire Western world, because when Westerners were first introduced to Buddhism, what they were English and German folks that traveled to Sri Lanka, which is where the Theravadins are, and they we want to learn about Buddhism. And so what they did is they told them their belief system. But their belief system is the belief system of the Sarvastivadins, i.e. the Theravadins. It is not the Buddha Sasana. Let me translate Buddha Sasana. That means doctrine of the Buddha. So when Westerners, this is very important, it's not my opinion, a feeling, a belief, it's a hardcore fact. When Westerners first introduced themselves to Buddhism, the Germans and the English, by the way, I'm a member of the Polytech Society, not that matters for anything, they introduced themselves to those yellow-robed guys. Yeah, you see them, the yellow-robed ball guys. Laos, Burma, Ceylon, Sri Lanka, Vietnam. So we want to learn about Buddhism. But they didn't teach them about Buddhism. They taught them the beliefs of the Sarvastivadins, i.e. the Theravadins. They did not learn the Buddha Sasana, or the doctrine of the Buddha. Pre-sectarian, in other words, the original article. They went there wanting to learn about this, but instead they were taught this. Yeah? Well, Buddhism, and this is what you'll find on Wikipedia, everywhere in any Google search, everywhere in any Bing search. You type in Buddhism and this. Buddhism teaches this is everything on the internet. Everything, and every one of them is wrong because it is not reflected in any passage. As an expert and a translator of ancient Pali, and there's not one person in a billion that translates ancient Pali, but I've been doing it for over 20 years. Every passage everywhere on the internet will say the same. Buddhism is completely different than Hinduism. It teaches that there is no soul, and that makes it complete. And it teaches that. So Buddhism is transformed completely opposite to doctrine, i.e. Buddha Sasana, into this moralistic, nihilistic, self-suicidal, sectarian phantasm of spiritual nihilism. They will do everything possible to cover up pro-Atman passages in doctrine. A famous one that they cover up is Samyutta Nikaya 3.195, and the most famous Theravadin translator, and I'm not going to give you his name. He translates, the passage is, a person asks Gautama, he says, Anatman, dear Lord, what does Anatman mean? And Gautama answers, Anatman is Maradama. Now, Mara is basically the evil one. It's the personification of everything that's foul and evil. Everybody agrees on what the translation of Mara is. Dhamma is Pali for Sanskrit word dharma, which means prakriti, or natura naturans. You could say the principle of evil, or the foundation of evil, yada, yada, yada. In other words, the passage says, Anatman equals, Anatman equals, and there's no contention about this, Maradama. In other words, the principle or attribute of pure evil. But, here's the kicker. If you are a Theravadin and you deny the Atman, then the only refuge or the only point of purity, wisdom, purity, or Vishuddha, liberation, vimukta or vimutti, has to be the psychophysical. But the psychophysical have already been called the nexus of evil, or Maradama. So herein you have a metaphysical conundrum within the Theravada. So what they do, and this is not my opinion, this is how they translate Maradama. Which means nature or prakriti. I don't know if you know what prakriti means. Some of you, if you know Sanskrit, know what prakriti means. The principle of evil, the foundation of evil. They translate that as subject to evil. In other words, there's such a thing as pure or good evil, i.e. the five khandhas, or the, Rupa, Vedana, Sana, Sankara, Vijnana, i.e. Nama, Rupa. They'll say subject to. So what they've done is they translated the word dharma, or dhamma in Pali, as subject to. Which doesn't say that at all in the Pali, but since there's not one person in a billion that translates ancient Pali, nobody sees that. Nobody sees that. It takes a person with a half a brain or more, like myself, and I got way more than a half a brain, and say, no, that's not what the passage says at all. It says that the psychophysical is Maradama, the foundation or principle of evil. Not of, the perpetuation of evil, which of course is the will, and, the will towards evil. But it means that they're the puppets, the stench, the foulness, but they don't believe this. See, if you deny the soul, and this is undeniable, if you deny the soul, then the nexus, or the axis mundi of purification and all that's holy, potentially, must be the psychophysical. Because if you deny the soul, then there is no nexus of subjective purity and liberation other than the psychophysical. But the passage of Samyutta Nikaya 3.195 says that the psychophysical is Maradama. And they can't reconcile that. That's what we call Baudelarization. But old Uncle Kenny, being an expert in Pali translation, he ain't going to fall for sectarian belief systems. Religion. That's why I have no interest in belief systems. I have no interest. Religion is dumbed down or secularized metaphysics. I don't care about what people believe in. I don't care about any religion. Everything calling it... You want to show me somebody that knows nothing about Buddhism, you go find me like the most adamant, hardcore hardcore Buddhist on planet Earth, and I will show you someone that knows nothing about what it teaches. And I mean that literally. They don't know anything. Most Christians, once in a while pick up the Bible. It's a completely different parallel. Mostly it's a type of good... They will scrub their eyeballs with Clorox before they will actually read doctrine. They will read commentarial stuff and pop Zen books and books by HHDL, if you know who that is, a nobody. These smiling, oh, how are you doing, everybody, today? Treat your neighbor nice, and this is what the doctrine is. That's not what it teaches at all. It's a liberation ontology based in wisdom for the transcendence of the ontological self, which is sans the psychophysical, which, it's all about the identification phenomenology, which perpetuates suffering, and the primordial agnosis, which gave birth to it to begin with, or as I say in Pali, paticca samuppada. But there's nobody on this earth that knows more about the term anatta and atman than me. But everywhere you go on the internet, and I've written many articles on this topic, which are quite famous, by the way. People love to quote them. And I list book and verse. I don't make any fallacious opinions about it, so I don't mince words. But everywhere you go online, every current sect of this religion, which I said I have no interest in religions and belief systems, they will tell you, well, the term anatta or anatman means that there is no soul, and this is what Buddhism teaches. One of the core they all say this. It's one of the core fundamental teachings of Buddhism. But it doesn't say that in doctrine at all. It says just the opposite. It would be like, kind of a perfect analogy, it would be like if every group of Christians on earth, the Baptist, Catholic, said Jesus has nothing to do with Christianity. We just leave that, we can ignore that. It has nothing to do with it. It's like, you'd be like, what? That's crazy. How could Jesus have nothing to do with Christianity? But you'd have like all the Baptists and Catholics. That's what that's what it's like when you read all these people. And all of this started from the early to mid 1800s from English and Germans mostly going to India wanting to learn about Buddhism. But they didn't learn about Buddhism. They learned about Thérawaïdine belief systems. And that made its way back to England and back to Europe, and it's proliferated still today. But nobody's got time to spend a decade learning an ancient dead language that's been dead now for thousands of years, except for me. Thankfully, I'm a prodigy at languages. So you got every Buddhist in the world. Buddhism is different. It teaches that there is... Oops. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. It teaches that there is no soul. And that's what makes Buddhism original. It's like, well, it doesn't teach that at all. Sure it does. You just go Google search. It says right there. It says Buddhism teaches there is no soul. And this, folks, is why I want nothing to do with any religion or belief system. It's one of countless reasons, actually. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm glad I could extol upon this thing that I know better than anybody else on this earth, I can boastfully and accurately say.